Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. With Summer NAMM quickly approaching us, we're starting to see some new releases from all of our favorite manufacturers. Today, I want to cover the very softly exposed new Gibson models. Now, Gibson decided to hide their releases within their newest The Collection video, where they took a deep dive of Cesar's collection. And if you don't know who Cesar is, he was the CMO of Gibson, but he was just recently promoted to the President of Gibson. So from my understanding, he's the number 2 guy in command, as you still have Curly, the CEO. But as far as social presence, you definitely see a lot more of Cesar than you do the actual CEO. And in the 7th installation of the Collection series, we got to see some of his personal guitars. Now, I'll let you go ahead and watch through this whole 1 hour, 15-minute episode if you want to see some cool vintage Les Pauls. There's a really cool Pelham Blue guitar in there, as well as a few hidden gems. But before we talk about some of the topics in here, let's go ahead and cut to the chase. What were the models announced in this video? If you scroll all the way back here to around the 5025 mark, you can see the approved prototype samples of what is going to be one of the most expensive Gibson releases, like, of all time, is what I'm guessing here. I mean, these cases get cases. I guess it's more like a gig bag cover. But inside here sleeps Korina Flying Vs and Korina Explorers. And these are not just any remakes. These are actual scanned replicas of ones that Gibson has within their archive. But to make matters even crazier, not only all of that, but they also have Brazilian Rosewood fretboards, originally sourced before it was all banned, so they can actually use it, and they're Murphy Lab creations, which means they're going to be relict in some nature. But what makes this 1.5-year journey of creating these things even more exciting for me is they've pretty much replicated everything as it was initially offered in the 50s. So that means they've made the exact same numbers as what are in the ledgers for this collector's edition run. So that means there are only 81 Vs available to the public and 19 original Explorers. And what makes things even cooler on the Explorers, besides being ultra heavily limited edition, is they are a single piece body. The Vs are 2 pieces. So imagine a piece of Korina that big for an Explorer. You can guess that the price tags on these are going to be through the roof. Murphy aged, Brazilian Rosewood fretboard, reissue of a guitar that's, point for point details, all correct. They even reissued some of the case candy. I'm really excited for that Gibson pennant. But these are supposed to be dropping this summer, and Cesar seems to think that it's going to be very soon. Maybe we'll see the prototypes at Summer NAMM, maybe not. But this is going to be an expensive release, to say the least. And I'm happy to say, yes, I bought a set of them. We'll see them on the show. I don't think I can share pricing yet. Very, very expensive, but very, very limited in production. But in case you're not interested in vintage reissues that are highly limited edition, if you watched all the way back here, you can actually see something that will make a lot of people very happy if you happen to like Adam Jones and missed out on the original run. The next installation of the Adam Jones series. So back a while ago, Gibson actually teased like a Flying V custom for Adam Jones at the very, very end of their spoiler video. But we knew from Cesar himself telling us that the Adam Jones was not just a one-time limited edition thing. I mean, there were 179 VOS and 79 aged and signed, not counting the remakes because of the whole stolen situation. Check this video out for more on that. But right here, we see what they are bringing to the Gibson USA production. They're doing a Les Paul standard. Now, I don't know if it's going to be based on a 50s or 60s model. I would guess 60s due to the neck profiles of the 70s ones generally being pretty thin. But you can see they have the teardrop shape. They've got the same pickup layout on here. No pick guard or anything like that. Unfortunately, I was really hoping for like a classic custom rebirth, but I understand why they didn't, because then it looks very similar to the custom shop ones. And, I'm glad they varied it up a bit, because now we have a teardrop burst Les Paul standard within this lineup. Generally, when you have a standard that's done up like this, they'll do a perimeter burst when they do Silverburst standards. However, this is actually looking very, very similar to the old Showcase Edition Les Pauls from 1988. It's not quite visible from this angle, but it looks like, are we getting an ebony fretboard on that, or is that just a really, really dark rosewood fretboard? But this is the official teaser, I guess, announcement for this one, the Adam Jones Les Paul Standard Silverburst. Now, I was curious, are they going to burst the back on this one? Unfortunately not. But it does look like we have Grover tuners on it and another symbol on the back, similar but not exactly the same as what we saw on the custom shop releases. Same design, but the lines look a lot thicker, and since you don't have the burst on the back, it stands out way more on those USAs. So I guess we can look forward to these things coming out. I'm sure they're going to be a top seller. I would guess, it's not going to be a limited production. It's just going to be like the Slash Standard Collection. If I were to guess the price of it, $3,000. Anywhere between $3,000 to $3,500, I think is completely legit. But I have no insider info on that. We'll just have to see how it plays out and when they eventually come out. However, in Cesar's collection, right here, if we pause, we can see some Flying V basses. Now, I remember about 6 to 8 months ago, I remember seeing those and thinking, are they doing something special with a Flying V bass? And around the 1 hour, 4 minute mark in this video, Mr. Gueikian did tell us that within the G2 lineup of Gene Simmons' new signature guitars, they're planning on doing a V bass, but that is way, way, way in the future. On the opposite side of the spectrum, instead of way in the future, do you guys remember this thing? I always wanted to make a video about the Bolivian Burst Les Paul. This was rumored to be the next Slash signature guitar, but then the original collection happened, and we saw this finish get used on that. So even though it was marked as Slash Vermilion prototype right here on the screen, I'm not sure if they've actually canned this idea, or if they just happened to go with the original collection and they're going to do this later on. That's what I always assumed. This was just, an ace in the pocket. Because this was prototype number 2 and Slash has number 1. So maybe we will see a custom shop release of this. I think we should. It's a cool guitar that just kind of fell off the track right now because they're focusing on rebuilding the Gibson USA brand. And we've got Richie Faulkner here. He rang the doorbell during the recording of this. I can't tell if that was planned or not. He was just returning a guitar, but let's talk about that guitar. If you pause it right here, I already knew exactly what was in this case. It's a Medallion Flying V. The fact that Cesar just recently purchased one of these, I remember seeing this thing show up on Reverb, but knowing he owns one of these kind of makes me hopeful that we will see some sort of a reissue on this. Because KK Downing was famous for using one of these, and it was just a limited edition release to commemorate the 1971 Olympics. It just had a limited edition medallion put on here. Pretty much nothing else is that special about them, but these are highly collectible, like some of the most expensive Norlin era guitars ever created. So maybe when the Olympics roll around, we might see some sort of a reissue on these. I think that'd be cool. Either that or he just wanted to show these off. But it seemed a little bit strange to me that this particular guy brought that in at this particular time when they're filming it. I think something might happen there, but maybe it'll just be in the future. But perhaps one of my favorite moments in this video is when, Dave Mustaine just casually breaks into his house. Like, he didn't get a little intro segment where he rings the doorbell. He's just like, hey guys, what's up? I'm going to throw these cases on these expensive replica cases. But essentially what this segment is telling us is Dave ended up liking the songwriter body style, so he's going to start maybe getting some prototypes using that body style with the 24 frets. We saw his signature guitars get announced earlier this year, but essentially they're going to, just continue prototyping based on these that he ended up enjoying. And on top of the finishes that we already knew about of them, apparently they're going to do a Silverburst one too. Silverbursting all the things. Mr. Gueikian is a big fan of Silverburst, as many of us are. And yeah, it seems this finish is finally starting to get some love, even by other artists. So it'll be interesting to see what else might show up in this particular finish. Even though I'm a fan of Silverburst, so far I'm not really digging the Dave Mustaine signature acoustics. I'm just not a big acoustic guy, and the strange Dean-esque looking frets, pointy cutaway, it's not necessarily my style of guitar, but it is interesting nonetheless. So that's a quick recap of everything that you should have found in that video. The back half of the video definitely had all of the stuff that people are kind of missing. I did key out 4 very important segments. They were just interesting discussions. At 12:20, they started to talk about refrets on vintage guitars. Personally, for me, I think it depends on how well kept the example was. Like, if it's kind of beat up, yeah, a refret's not gonna matter. As long as you take it to a guy that knows how to do it right. I prefer keeping the fret nibs. I know that's very expensive and a tedious process, but if I were to ever refret a really rare guitar, I would do the fret nib retention. And then further on here at 1840, I think this episode was trying to humanize the new president of Gibson here. And he talks about the importance of him to own the originals, you know, in order to make very good custom shop runs as close as they can. Like, a lot of the things that he ends up buying for himself or for the Gibson archives, you know, they take the scans and they use it to create the new custom shop runs. Later on, around the 30-minute mark, they start talking about the Murphy Lab and how it also uses some of his stuff. At 23:20, he pulls out his own original burst, and they start talking, are the vintage bursts better than the modern day reissues? These guys are kind of biased to enjoy and like what they're creating right now, but at the end of the day, a high-end custom shop, it's gonna be a good guitar no matter what. Some better than others, some just, you know, they fit other people better. The last little bit to further solidify, you know, getting to know Cesar, is he talks about how it's such an honor for him to work with the artists that he grew up, you know, being a big fan of. But it's definitely cool to see that he has a massive collection. This is his house in the video. It's just all over. Now, I'm sure some of this was set up for the video, like these guitars on stands. They might not normally be all over his house. But yeah, at the end of the day, he's just one of us crazy guitar fanatic lover guys. Everything seems to be going pretty good at Gibson. They're in a great direction right now. We're in a rebirth period, very similar to the 90s that we still refer to as the Goodwood era, the rebirth of Gibson, where things all of a sudden happened. I'm sure in 20, 30 years, you know, people are going to say, which one should I buy? We're going to tell you, either go to the 90s or go to the early 2020s. That's when they did this. Like in 93, that's when they launched the custom shop. So people try to go to that. So we're definitely at a very interesting point in Gibson history. So troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed this recap of things you might have missed in this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.